In the heart of the nation of Zubanda, where the sun kissed the earth with golden rays and the winds carried whispers of age-old wisdom, lived a man whose name both inspired fear and anger, Chief Mangulu. Rising from a humble background, Mangulu had once been a man of great promise, speaking passionately about justice and equality. But as years passed, power corrupted his soul, and his true nature emerged. Chief Mangulu was a master of deception. To the public, he was the benevolent leader who distributed bags of maize during election season and donned the traditional garb of a common farmer to mingle with his people. But behind closed doors, he was an insatiable tyrant who siphoned state resources to fund his extravagant lifestyle. Mangulu's mansion, a sprawling palace of marble and gold, stood in stark contrast to the mud huts and crumbling shacks of his people. He thrived on creating enemies out of shadows. Whenever the people's anger simmered, Mangulu would deliver a televised speech, his voice trembling with righteous indignation. "My people," he would declare, "Zubanda suffers not because of me, but because of the enemies of progress. They sabotage our economy, spread lies about your leader, and seek to divide us. Do not let them succeed." The people's whispers of dissent were silenced by fear of his ruthless enforcers, the Iron Claw Brigade. Yet beneath the surface, resentment brewed. Mangulu's wealth knew no bounds. He flew to foreign lands in private jets for shopping sprees, imported exotic delicacies for his feasts, and threw lavish parties where foreign dignitaries and local elites clinked glasses under chandeliers that cost more than a year's worth of the nation's education budget. One infamous incident highlighted his extravagant indifference. A desperate villager, an elderly woman named Mamania, walked miles to Mangulu's palace seeking help for her ailing grandson, who needed urgent medical care. Mangulu, lounging by his pool with a goblet of imported wine, listened with feigned sympathy. "Ah, Mamania," he said, waving a hand dismissively, "we must care for our people." He gestured to a servant who returned moments later with a basket of wilted leftovers from a banquet. "Take this and know your leader cares," he added with a smile, promising that a new hospital would soon be built in her village. Weeks turned into months, and the hospital never materialized. Mama Nia's grandson succumbed to his illness, becoming yet another silent victim of Mangulu's hollow promises. Meanwhile, the villagers whispered their fury, their resentment against Mangulu, simmering ever closer to boiling over. His people walked miles for drinking water, battled preventable diseases, and sent their children to schools with collapsing roofs. One day, a young school teacher named Abeni stood before her class under the shade of a baobab tree. She taught her students about courage and unity, recounting tales of their ancestors who had fought against colonial oppressors. She spoke of the fierce resistance led by warriors and wise leaders who, armed with little more than spears and unyielding determination, had stood against the rifles and chains of their oppressors. Through cunning strategies and unwavering solidarity, the ancestors had reclaimed their lands, driving out the colonial forces and setting the stage for a free Zubanda. As Abeni described their victory, the pride in her voice resonated with her students. "Remember," she said, her eyes blazing with conviction, "our ancestors showed us that even the mightiest oppressors can be defeated when we stand together. Their blood, their courage flows in us. Never forget their struggle, for their victory is our inheritance." Little did she know her words would ignite a spark. The breaking point came when Mangulu imposed a new tax on farmers, claiming it was for infrastructure development, but the people saw through the lies. The tax was a thinly veiled attempt to fund Mangulu's newest pet project, an opulent resort in the mountains. Abeni, along with a group of brave individuals, a fisherman, a nurse, a mechanic, and a retired soldier, formed a secret alliance. They called themselves the Umoja movement, meaning united. Their motto was simple: enough is enough. The Umoja movement's plan was ingenious and multifaceted, designed to strike Mangulu's regime at its core. They began by gathering evidence, with Abeni leading a covert team to collect documents from whistleblowers within Mangulu's administration. These papers revealed secret offshore accounts, inflated contracts awarded to his cronies, and a scandalous deal where Mangulu sold off fertile farmland to foreign corporations, displacing thousands of villagers. Using an old radio transmitter, the Umoja movement broadcasted these revelations in serialized episodes, presenting hard evidence along with testimonies from betrayed allies of Mangulu who had turned against him. They enlisted a network of couriers to distribute leaflets detailing his crimes, including the embezzlement of funds meant for hospitals and schools. These materials were slipped under doors, left in marketplaces, and pasted onto walls under the cover of night. Strategically, the movement infiltrated key government institutions to leak Mangulu's secret dealings to international media, exposing his lavish spending and human rights abuses. This not only weakened his grip on local power, but also caused foreign investors to withdraw their support. They also exploited his paranoia, planting false rumors of betrayal among his inner circle, which led to Mangulu distrusting and sidelining some of his most loyal enforcers. This chaos within his ranks gave the movement more room to operate as they chipped away at his empire. As the truth spread, the people's fear began to evaporate. Farmers refused to pay the new tax. Market women chanted slogans of defiance. Youths painted murals of a broken chain on walls, a symbol of liberation. Mangulu, sensing the tide turning, tried to suppress the rebellion with brutal force. The Iron Claw Brigade raided villages, arrested suspected members of the Umoja movement, and burned the pamphlets. But it was too late. The unity of the people was like a flood, unstoppable and overwhelming. The final blow came during Zubanda's Independence Day parade, as Mangulu stood on a grand podium ready to deliver another speech filled with lies. The Umoja movement orchestrated a dramatic protest. Hundreds of citizens wearing masks of unity marched silently into the square. They carried signs bearing Mangulu's own words, twisted into bitter irony: "A leader must serve his people." The crowd's silence was deafening, more powerful than any roar. Embarrassed and enraged, Mangulu fled the podium. That night, the people stormed his palace, finding it empty. Mangulu had escaped into exile, leaving behind his ill-gotten wealth and a nation ready to rebuild. The Umoja movement transformed into a provisional government, ensuring that Zubanda's resources were used for the people. Schools were rebuilt, water wells were dug, and farmers received tools and seeds. When it came time to choose a leader, Abeni stood out for her unwavering integrity and vision. The people, inspired by her courage and selflessness, unanimously chose her to lead them, marking the dawn of a new era. However, not everyone was convinced. In the shadows of the jubilant celebrations, a few whispered doubts about Abeni's capabilities, pointing to her lack of political experience. "She is just a school teacher," some murmured. "How can she handle the complexities of leadership?" Abeni addressed these concerns with her characteristic calm and wisdom during her first public speech as leader. Standing atop a simple wooden podium in the village square, she said, "Experience without integrity is what brought us Mangulu. I may not have sat in gilded halls or worn the title of politician, but I have walked among you, taught your children, and felt your struggles. Together, we will rebuild not with expertise alone, but with honesty, unity, and hard work. Her words resonated deeply, silencing critics and solidifying her place in the hearts of the people. Under Abeni's leadership, Zubanda flourished, becoming a beacon of hope and proof that true power lies in the hands of the united and determined. Chief Mangulu, now a fugitive, watched from afar as Zubanda flourished. However, justice had not forgotten him. Months after his flight, an international warrant was issued for his arrest, citing crimes of corruption, embezzlement, and human rights abuses. The Umoja movement, now the legitimate government, worked tirelessly with global organizations to track him down. Mangulu was eventually captured in a distant country, living under a false identity in a luxurious villa. He was extradited to Zubanda, where he faced a fair trial broadcasted to the entire nation. The evidence was damning: secret offshore accounts, stolen funds, and testimonies from victims of his regime. When the verdict was announced, guilty on all counts, a wave of closure swept over Zubanda. Mangulu was sentenced to life imprisonment. His wealth was seized by the state, and the land he forcefully and unlawfully took from the people was returned to its rightful owners, marking the end of his reign and serving as a reminder that no leader is above the law. The people's courage had not only broken their chains, but had also ensured that justice prevailed, proving that even the most corrupt tyrant could not escape accountability.